All right, everyone. Welcome to the Stoa. Today we have Fenne Lily with us. Fenne's a folk singer-songwriter. Her first album was called On Hold, and her most recent album is called Breach. And she wrote it during a self-enforced isolation pre-COVID. So perhaps her intuition was picking up on something and she got her isolation reps in. Um, and how the session came about, I was listening to Nietzsche during one of our collective journaling sessions here at the Stoa. I'm like, what is this? And on a whim, I reached out to her because I'm a fan of Nietzsche and the song, I was vibing with it. And then after the session, I was reading an interview with Fenn, and she's like, so I was scared, and this is her. So I was scared about putting that on the album. It makes me look like I read Nietzsche and that I'm a big shit and stuff. I don't want to spoil with the real reason behind the song. Maybe we'll get to that after we listen to it. But how today's going to work, Fenn and I are going to have a conversation. Then we're going to listen to the song together, and then we're going to have some fun exercises after that, around 60 minutes in total. So that being said, and everyone feel free to turn on their camera as well. We can get it nice and intimate conversation today. So that being said, Fenn, welcome to the Stoa. And I put you on mute. I forcefully put you on mute, so you have to unmute yourself.
Hi. How's it going? I've never done a Zoom with more than like 5 people, so this is terrifying. So many little heads.
Yeah, we're welcoming people. So what we were talking before we let people in, I imagine that you're not on many sort of philosophical themed podcasts, and this is sort of like a communal podcast, and it's not really about philosophy proper. And I imagine other podcasts, correct me if I'm wrong, that you talk about the ins and outs of the music world, and what's the song mean to you. So I thought like maybe we can hold space and have an opportunity just to like riff on what is philosophically alive for you these days. So yeah, anything comes online when I mention that.
What that I'm philosophically vibing with?
Yeah, like what topics or kind of questions are at the edge of your thinking?
Well, I think lockdown and this last year in general has been particularly an exercise for me in being more happy with the things that I have. Because one of the huge themes on the first record was being heartbroken, and one of the big themes on the second record was trying to enjoy not being in love. So both of them were about not being in love. And I've just spent the last year with someone in a close space who I do love, but really struggling with that as well. So I've been, I don't know, I guess stuff I've been reading a lot of books about people that are trapped. I don't know if that's like kind of a subconscious reflection of what's been happening, but yeah, kind of, I don't really know. It's such a big question to answer so early on, and I hope you know that.
Yeah, I kind of do know that. And one thing that caught my attention is sort of loneliness, the theme of loneliness in this particular album, Breach, and some of your interviews that you had. And I'm curious, sort of like, I think you made a distinction, like being alone versus being lonely, and then sort of like being in right relationship with being alone. Yeah, so I'm curious where you're at with that, like maybe how that process was with creating that album and doing the album, maybe the therapeutic aspects of it, and then how that helped, and maybe the through line that's occurring right now in being in lockdown in your current relationship.
Yeah, I think I felt really alone during the first, when I was writing the first album, predominantly because I had a big falling out with my family, and I moved out of my family home and moved to a city by myself, and I was really young and trying to figure out who I was. And I think obviously that never finishes, but there's a big chunk of that in your late teens where you're like, what's going on? Do I need to be having more sex? Do I need to be eating less quiche or whatever? So I wrote the first album when I was feeling like I needed to be surrounded by people in order to feel like a real person. And then during the second album, I kind of hit another period of that because I felt like I was doing everything right, but something was really missing, and I was having a long on and off relationship with a person who lived in another country, and I was just really struggling with feeling far away from stuff. And I decided to lean into the thing that was the most scary, which was being by myself. So I went to Berlin on my own and had a really scary time at first, and then um, found it comforting that no one knew who I was, and it was freeing in some way. But yeah, there is a difference between being alone and being lonely. And I think as much as I love the person I'm with now, and I've enjoyed a lot of parts of lockdown, we were talking earlier about the good things to come out of last year. Um, I think the loneliest I've felt during this period has been when I'm not by myself and I'm not able to like check in with myself. And I think I do that best when I'm on my own. I have a lot of things that I want to say, and they're all coming out in the wrong order. I'm really sorry. But yeah, it's. I mean, when I was doing interviews for the first record, the second record, it was almost annoying people being like, "Oh, so you're no stranger to like this situation where you can't leave your house or like do anything you want to do." I am. I went to Berlin and stayed in an Airbnb and went to clubs, so it wasn't like I was fully isolating in a huge way. It was just a practice in putting myself in a different situation to get something different out of myself, which I don't think a lot of people have the, I don't know, agency or like privilege or chance to do. So, yeah.
I'm curious, the relationship between sort of the impulse to create art, and perhaps as a response to loneliness, and maybe as like a beacon, to find the others, to ameliorate a sense of kind of like that, not just being alone, but like that existential loneliness of finding others. So I'm curious how kind of like the artistic impulse relates to that for you.
Initially, I started writing music because I didn't have any friends. I grew up in a really rural part of England, and there was really nothing going on. And I don't know, maybe the women in the chat now will know what I'm talking about when it's like every girl in your year suddenly decides that there's like one person they're gonna push to the side, and it happens to everyone at least once, and you have to like fight to get back into the circle. And I didn't want to fight to get back into the circle, and I kind of chose to not have friends for the last bit of school. So writing music for me was definitely a chance to feel like I had a community, even if the community was made up of people I'd never met and I was just listening to. And then, as happens, I met loads of people through music, and now I have that community in real life. But yeah, I mean, I was watching a documentary about Picasso. I don't know why I think that doesn't make me look like a dick, but people thinking I read Nietzsche makes me look like a dick. And he said nothing great comes out of, no, everything great comes out of being alone. And I don't know if I necessarily agree with that, because I think that if I had friends, I would probably still be making music. I don't know if it's essential to be like, to cut yourself off and hurt yourself to make something cool. But it's definitely a beacon and a comfort to make it and to absorb it. I don't know if there's any like use to art if it isn't that. Certainly from a creation standpoint, it would be weird if I didn't feel like comforted by what I'm doing. I don't know. Yeah.
And I invite anyone to put questions in the chat, and you can just call and you can jump in. I think that would be nice to get some voices in. Yeah, what comes up is just maybe as a curiosity, and I'm curious if anything's alive for you in general, if you want to pivot the thread. But like, what good has come into your life from creating art, maybe the recent art, And what kind of bullshit? I was talking to Alex Ebers, a friend of the Stoa. He came recently, and he's just giving me all the kind of like the deets of like how bullshit a lot of the industry is, the music industry. Um, and so I'm curious, sort of like, the good, bad, and the ugly of what came online, putting this beacon out there.
I mean, immediately what comes to mind when I think of the good stuff is it gave me something to do. I never like had a dream when I was a kid. I wanted to be a surfer and a mum and 6 foot tall. And that was like my idea of what my life would be. And then I started writing songs and I was like, ooh, maybe there's an opportunity here for me to, yeah, make something really personal that also allows me to be gentle. I think I have two really emotionally present parents, which sounds brilliant. But when I was growing up, I was like, they're taking up all of the space and they love talking about their feelings, and we need to work everything out in like a room together and have conversations about how we feel towards one another. And I was like, this is bullshit. I just want to be able to like smash stuff up and be angry and be normal and ignored. So I kind of always thought like softness and emotional reflection was like something other people did and I had to rail against. And then making music, I was like, this is like a safe space that I can make for myself in a language that isn't shared with my parents, because my parents aren't musical. It's like my own private way of being gentle and emotional without having to be like them. And then, yeah, and then the industry. I mean, any industry is bullshit and is filled with assholes, and the music industry is no different. I just think it's more talked about. I don't know. I haven't really had any bad experiences with like, I've never been taken advantage of in terms of like money or told that I have to be a certain way to be successful. Maybe if I had, I would be really successful. But I don't know. Yeah, there's like, I don't know. Yeah, there's obviously bad things. I mean, bringing it to the song, there's like people who want to be in relationships with musicians because they're musicians. That's the most bullshit part of it, I think. I don't know. Yeah.
So not seeing you as you and the complex mystery that you are, but sort of like the archetype of you're the musician. I want to, be with that. Is that the sense?
Yeah. Or like kind of the, not fetishization, but like interest in someone because they're passionate about something. Um, but I think we all do that in some respects. Um, should I be checking the chat, by the way? Things keep popping up.
Yeah, I can in that. Yeah. So feel free to pop your question in the chat. Kevin, you had a question or thought.
Yeah, I relate really strongly to stuff you've been saying. I'm really interested in the contrast between sort of isolation and aloneness versus like being in a crowd. So I recently went to San Francisco a few weekends ago for a wedding, and I'd been spending a lot of time alone. And then I went there, and I was like, oh my God, there's so many people here, and like it felt like the things that I was sort of passionate about or like I thought were important, like I was like, wow, no one here like cares about any of that. Like it's like there's so much going on and there's so many people. I'm wondering if that's like what your experience is around like the contrast between sort of isolation and loneliness and then like being in a crowd has been.
They are, yeah, I definitely hear that, being in a crowd and being like, oh, there's so many voices that maybe like mine doesn't matter and maybe there's no point in talking kind of feeling. I don't know. I feel like more recently I've kind of treated socializing or being alone in a crowd as like a game. I don't know if that comes from finally finding a real safety in one person, i.e. not just jumping around and having loads of short relationships, I found like someone I can like be completely at home with, and I can kind of treat that as a base and feel less like I need a lot from being around, or being exposed to loads of other things. I don't know, even now with all these little faces, I'm feeling almost isolated in the fact that I'm the only one talking.
I can respond to you if that makes you feel better.
Yeah, big time.
I
Let's
think
have a conversation.
what you said about having a base is super interesting, because I was recently, you know, going through like the COVID thing, and I was living with my parents, and I felt like I sort of regressed to this feeling of like no one here understands me. And I like had to sort of like, you know, I felt isolated from my tribe, and like I had a sort of weird opportunity for some type of relationship, and I feel like I projected all of like the possibility of escape and like understanding onto one person.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so it's like yeah, it's I think that's the experience of, you know, feeling like you're alone, and like, you know, you can sort of project all the possibilities of adventure and escape onto people.
And that's a lonely feeling in itself. Like,
Mhm.
I don't know, there's a definite temptation to feel, I don't know, maybe it's a cultural thing, maybe it's like an age thing, I don't know. I'm like 23, and there's a feeling like if you're by yourself for a night, or if you're by yourself for a month, or if you haven't had a relationship in a while, like you're kind of failing. And then it becomes really scary to be by yourself, and you feel like the fact that you're in your own company is part of the reason, or the main reason why you're not happy or like going places, and other people are vehicles. And definitely through the process of making the second record, I wanted to like get away from that feeling of like, if I need to be someone else, I need someone else to precipitate that. Just trying to get away from that mentality. Because when that person goes, or like, I don't know, even if they don't, you don't have autonomy to explore by yourself. I have experiences without that person. Yeah. That's like kind of sounds like I was saying like all roads lead to loneliness. Being alone is lonely, and not being alone is lonely. I don't think I was trying to say that, but it definitely sounded like it.
Yeah. And feel free to you know, shake off the interviewee mode. Uh, Sometimes sessions like that default into that sense, but you know, like we can experiment here. And you're kind of like the first like proper musician that we had on. We usually have all these galaxy brain philosophers that we jam with. And so I thought I would design this one to be more experimental. But I think that's a delicious thread. How much it fucking sucks feeling alone when you're not alone. You know, like being lonely with others. It's like even worse. Just like being lonely when you're alone. Because it's like you're not really seen as a person or a mystery, or you're being pattern matched to something that, you know, just doesn't resonate, doesn't vibe, and then you're just kind of like, okay, I gotta be this person now. It's almost like someone's casting a spell on you. So yeah, anything coming alive when I just ranted there?
Yeah, that like playing a part feeling. I've definitely missed playing shows and going on tour, but one of the things I haven't missed is feeling like I'm playing a part all the time. Like we had a long stint of doing some touring in the States, and off the back of the touring, we recorded the record. So I was away from home for like 4 months, and I got back and I was like, shit, I'm exhausted. Because even when I wasn't in the studio, I was in an Airbnb playing the part of a guest. And then I was on a stage playing the part of a performer. And then I was in the van being like, not trying not to be stressful around my bandmates because they're basically doing me a favor by like being in my band. And I got home and I was like, oh, I can finally take off all of these hats that I've been wearing and are incredibly heavy and hard to maintain, and be myself. But it was definitely like a practice of like, what am I when I'm not being someone to someone else? How am I when I'm just in my own company with my own thoughts? The answer is really boring and mostly sleeping, but that was fine. I think being lonely in a crowd is the worst feeling, but also feeling like that's the end of that thought.
Did you have something, Kevin? You unmuted yourself.
Oh, I just don't want her to be the only one without the mute unmuted. But yeah, there's this Ralph Waldo Emerson quote that I like. It's about what is it? It is easy in the world to live after the world's opinion. It is easy in solitude to live after your own. But the great man is he who in the midst of a crowd keeps with perfect sweetness the independence of solitude. And I know the feeling of being lonely in a crowd, but in a way that can be kind of freeing in my experience. Because it's like,
makes you feel kind of special. You're like, am I the only one feeling like not enjoying this? I feel like there's kind of a perverse enjoyment that I feel when I go to like a party and I'm like, ugh, I'm having a terrible time. It must mean I'm like way deep. Is that just a gross admission that no one else feels? Like, does anyone else feel this lonely all the time? I don't know.
I'm sort of digging wearing masks, for the sense that when I go to a store, I don't have to like put this fake smile on, or I have that pressure to put a fake smile on. I can just do the bare minimum verbal expression and then be done with it.
You try and smile with your eyes. I've started trying to be like, but it ends up looking really spooky.
Looking more like a squint eye smile. So yeah, maybe this other thread is coming up, because when I heard your song, like my Spotify algorithms were shit for the longest time. And then your like song came on, what's this? It excited me. And it's like, had a somatic experience in my body. It's like, it just, when I have that, when a song comes online, I'm like, okay, this is something here. And I listened to it on repeat for a while. And like I said, I reached out to you because I had the word Nietzsche in the title, probably that influenced it.
Yeah, your algorithm's like, he'll like this.
Yeah, he's pretentious. He liked this song. But one of these terms, I really love this term called death works by Philip Reith. And it's basically works of art that undermine the sacred, or undermine something that connects people together. And he says basically lots of artworks in modern society are just death works. But in contrast, like a life work is like a work of art that like emphasizes the sacred. And I'm using the sacred here like in Durkheim's notion that something, a ritual, an artifact that brings people together. That's like his definition of the sacred. So I love this notion, like creating art as life work. And if that theory is true, so like that existential loneliness is a good basis to create like a life work to kind of like, find the others, or create something that is sacred, that brings people together. So all that being said, I guess the question there is like, what is the spiritual aspect of creating art for you?
Well, I think it's changed. I think when I was a kid, it was purely a comfort situation. Not really because I found a lot of comfort in listening to music, but because I was comforted by the feeling of having done something. But now I think it's changed into almost like this is going to sound insane, and I think the word pretentious is being used a lot in this conversation, but pretentious. Recently, I've been writing and wondering where words came from, because I've really trained myself in the art of writing a breakup song. Like I can do it now, I'm good at it, and it comes naturally and whatever. But now I'm not having a breakup, and I'll write a song and wonder what I was writing about. And then a few months later, I'll be looking back through songs and realize that the thing I was writing about has happened. So it's almost become this like personal, not bullshit horoscope for myself, where I'm like kind of anticipating what's going to happen before it's happened, purely because I'm quiet enough and focused enough on myself for 10 minutes or an hour or however long it takes to write a song, to actually hear what I'm thinking, rather than the kind of thinking that most of us do all the time, which is just like jumping from one thing to another because of having to react to the world and everything changing. So it's become like a tool and the product of focus and being, I don't know if you'll understand the word that's attached to this motion emotionally, like going inside for a bit, like a sleeping bag.
And I read somewhere you talk about the therapeutic notion of doing art, which I imagine is related to that motion. Yeah, could you touch on that for a bit? How art could be therapy?
Yeah, but I guess self-reflection can be painful, I guess. I mean, I haven't had a lot of really bad stuff to work through, but whatever I've had to work through, it's always helped to get something out of it. Kind of an exchange of emotion, like something happens and then I put it on paper or I put it in a song, and it's not purely pain anymore. It's almost like a conquering situation. So yeah, getting over stuff by making something horrible into something slightly less horrible or even beautiful can be, and it is therapeutic in itself, I think. But also like the feeling that I get from people telling me that something I've done has helped them through something that's happened to them. I think that's less therapeutic or less cathartic than the process of making something, but feeling like, I don't know, you've been heard by a stranger and maybe that's been a positive thing that's come out of something bad that's happened to you. I don't know.
Yeah, I like that alchemic process of turning shit to sugar. That doesn't only benefit you, but others who see the beacon or hear the beacon. So we'll pivot to like that, listen to the song maybe in a couple of minutes. But Alex Ebert just arrived. He's a friend of the Stoa, philosopher, singer-songwriter. And I know you missed some good threads, but you caught some of that. I'm curious, anything is alive for you, Alex?
Yeah, hey. Well, I just, of course, happen to be working on, actually, I brought the SoundCloud logo into an essay I'm writing right now, because the SoundCloud logo perfectly exemplifies transcendence, a multiplicity of stuff, enough of something leading to a transcendence. So you have 11 donuts and then the 12th makes the dozen, or you have enough vinegar and enough time and it transforms the cucumber to a pickle. But what's funny in the context of art, you were talking about the death and then the life. The waveform is this flat line, this equilibrium, and the waveform passes through. Every time you see that sonic waveform pass through the center, it's passing through silence. It's passing through death. And when it comes out on the other side, that's the expression of its life. And when you have in these days, when you master a song and you really compress it and you have a ton of expression, and they're all at the exact same sort of height of expression, you have another death. And so this process of sort of life and death and recurrence is just really on my mind. So when you brought that up, is death is sort of the death. What did you call it? The death something. Is the death something sort of required for then the next expression of life? And anyway, in my experience, and also just in reality, you need that equilibrium to then have the differentiating waveform. Otherwise, you don't have a dynamical system. You don't have life. You don't have dynamism. So if you got really good at writing the breakup song, and then your breakup song, and it's like, well, of course, now what? What's the next thing? Because that's now death. That's now your new equilibrium, your new flatline, and then your new base. You can fall back now on that. Oh, if I really need to, if I need to really make a buck, I'll write in. That's my new bottom. But where am I going to go from here? And that's sort of like this process of like learning, mastery. Now what? Learning, mastery. Now what? And that's sort of the artistic process in a way. Each mastery is a death.
How do you know if you've mastered something, though? I'd like to think I'm a master.
Yes, no, sure. It's probably not that we're always learning and all of that, but I think you know you've mastered something to the extent that you can when you've become bored with it. At least for me, you know, when it starts to feel like it's killing me.
You know, it comes up there, you know, James Carson's notion of finite games, infinite games. Like finite games, they have like clear rules and boundaries, and there's winners and losers. Infinite games, you play with the rules and boundaries, and there's like the only rules to keep playing. And he has this term called master player. Like every person who's playing a finite game wants to be a master player at it, but the master player is never surprised. You know, so that could be like the lack of surprise when you're doing something. That could be what you're trying to.
Yeah.
Reed, you had a question, and then after this, we'll pivot to the song.
Yeah, I was kind of intrigued by Femme when you were talking about the origins of words. I've thought about that a lot, and the only kind of comparison that you can draw is other animals in the animal kingdom. And whenever you observe anything complicated that's vocalized, it appears as song. Like that's what we call it. Birds sing and whales sing, and any kind of complex vocalization appears as song. And I'm just kind of curious if you can describe for yourself any kind of felt sense difference between speaking. Like, am I just singing to you right now? Or like, are we all just singing to each other? Like, what's the difference between speaking and singing?
I think about this a lot because recently I've been reading a lot of short stories and therefore trying to write short stories. And I feel like my written voice when I'm writing prose is so much different to how I write when I'm writing songs, and both of them are really different to how I speak, obviously. I guess there's a limitation when you're writing lyrics where you have to fit well, certainly the songs that I write, because I haven't I write like verse chorus structure songs which aren't like particularly imaginative, but I feel like there's a limitation there that's kind of freeing in a way, because you have to put across something in 5 words that you might be able to speak about over 5 minutes. So there's a lot of editing involved. But in editing, there's I read something earlier. Henry Carver said something about putting a full stop in the perfect place is the whole game that he plays with himself when he's writing books, where a perfectly placed piece of punctuation can make you feel something more than if it wasn't there, or if someone explained something in its full capacity. Where was I going with this? Sorry, there's a fly in my room and it's pissing me off. Yeah, I think just the fact that you can't talk forever in a song makes it, to me, a really effective language to get across huge feelings. There's there's a finite end to how much you can talk about something in a song. And that's exciting because, yeah, as you can tell, the longer I talk, the less on track I am, and it's scary. So songs are exciting in that way because you can't go on forever. Does that answer the question?
Yeah, that's interesting. Something that's kind of surprising in that response is that it seems like songs and music kind of has more structure to it, which seems kind of surprising based on my presumptions about the animals, in that speaking seems to be more complex and more having more structure to it. But I'm resonating with the sense that music has more structure to it.
I can't speak for the birds, but yeah, for people, I think that's the case. Have you heard that, just on the singing birds thing, that Aldous Harding lyric, "What if birds aren't singing, they're screaming"? That's some food for thought. Is it? I don't know. I get the feeling I'm in a room of incredibly intelligent people and I'm kind of just winging it, which is fun, but just know the way I'm feeling.
We just thought like we're just putting our incredibly intelligent looking faces, but we're not. Yeah. So how about this? We listen to the song now, and I just want to engage in some meta communication. I just feel like a kind of a felt sense, what they call the field of existential loneliness right now in the Zoom room. Perhaps I'm just projecting, but it's kind of delicious feeling for me. So we'll listen to the song I Nietzsche, which is the title of the session, and just feel into the song, how it's emotionally landing for you, perhaps, and we'll do a quick exercise and we'll do a breakout conversations. So I will play the song now. Hopefully Spotify advertisements don't come online because I still haven't bought the advanced edition. So
there's nothing wrong, but I need you. I'm looking for a reason to try. There's nothing wrong without I need you. I spend my life lying down, and there's nothing wrong, but I need you. I'm looking for a reason to try. I'm looking for a reason.
All right. Yeah, that's so fucking good.
Ready for the
I'm
ultimate summer road trips?
I'm oh, you heard that? Oh shit.
You need to pay for Spotify. It's insane.
I refuse. But yeah, I'm feeling a tenderness, and it's like it's landing right here. Real good. So here's the exercise. Everyone in the chat, don't press enter though. Just write one word that you're feeling, and don't press enter. And then when everyone has written their one word, we'll all press enter at the same time. So again, one word in the chat to describe your emotional state right now. Don't indicate, or don't press enter yet until I say go. And feel free to do so too, Fen. Give a thumbs up. Everyone has their word, one word. All right, cool. So 1, 2, 3, enter. You said yours privately to me, Fen. So only I
Yeah,
can.
it's their secret.
I get that. No one gets to know.
No, I don't know how to do it.
Oh,
Do it, everyone.
take a look.
That's embarrassing. Now mine's really present. Who just said boy?
So warm, apprehensive, suspended, bittersweet, wonder, contemplative, boy, weird, tentative, accepting, and growth. Love it. Not even one word the same, which is cool. All right. So next thing, the closing exercise. Just Fen, do you have like a hard stop at the hour, or could you go a little bit over? Yeah. So we'll do breakout rooms, kind of 3 people per room, 15 minutes each, or 50 minutes in total. And then we're going to have a conversation, talk about whatever you want really, but here's a prompt that we can use. How does creating or experiencing music art relate to existential loneliness? So that's a prompt if you have nothing to talk about, but just talk about whatever's alive. So I will put us into breakout rooms now. Just give me a moment. Enjoy the existential silence.
I'm just enjoying watching everyone's faces.
I realize I have a bad habit of just putting the word existential in front of everything.
Was that always the case, or is it only after doing the Stoa stuff?
I don't know, this session in particular, I don't know, you bring it on me, Faye, so maybe all right, cool. Let's just do just organizing the rooms. All right, everyone, see you in 15 minutes. All right, everyone, welcome back. So let's get before we close the session, let's get a few shares maybe. Anyone would like to just jump off popcorn style, just to share what was spoken about in their group?
Yeah, in our group, what came up was like this phrase shared humanity. I felt like it was very interesting when we were all listening to the same song. And I felt in me like this I wanted to go somewhere else and not look at people because it felt intense. But then I also wanted to go back and look at people because it felt like something new. It's like when you go to a gig, everyone looks on stage, and this was like listening to a song and looking at each other. It's like, yeah, it was had an interesting quality. Like I wanted to go away from it, and I don't know. I would love to hear if anyone else felt similar. Like I was like, is this only in me? And then I looked around, and it felt like everyone was kind of, what am I doing now?
Yeah, thanks, Klaus. Fen, if you said something, you're mute again.
Yeah, I completely get that. I mean, obviously I'm biased because it was my song and it was horrible to listen to my own song with loads of people looking at me. But yeah, it's like standing in a circle, sharing the same experience while not really being able to experience it because you're looking into someone else's reaction. Yeah.
Yeah, was that awkward for you? Like when it was
Oh
playing?
yeah, it was horrible. It's like when people sing you happy birthday and you're like, where do I look? Because I wanted to watch everyone's faces, but I also felt like that was an invasion because
Mm,
I don't want to be watched while I absorb something for the first time or
mm,
ever, really. Yeah. It's also really unnatural. Like, when does that ever happen? As you said, you go to a show, you're all facing the person that's doing the thing. You're all at the cinema and you're all sitting next to each other and no one has to look at each other. It's almost like having like joyless sex with like 10 other people, just like face to face, not absorbing it properly.
mm. Yeah, too bad Alex left. He was telling me, it's his famous song "Home." How it was like the relationship with him in that song just evolved throughout time. And it's just there's a totally different relationship with it now. So it's cool how the original motivation to create something, it can change when other people interact with it. So yeah, let's get maybe one or two more shares and we'll close up.
Yeah, Fan, just to add to what you're saying, or actually Tyson flows, Peter, you know him well, obviously, but that he creates spaces where everybody's freestyling and bobbing their heads at the same time. So that's that's really cool, and it takes away I guess the sense that you're being looked at and you're sharing like an empathy circle, and everybody just be themselves and freestyle and just make noise, and it's beautiful. So yeah, it would be good to check it out because I really like that. I just wanted to say
What's his name?
Tyson flows.
Tyson Flows. Okay.
Yeah.
Is there music? No music. So it's like clubbing, no music.
Well, he's like a freestyle rapper, but Peter might be better to introduce him actually. But
yeah, he used to be in the Wisdom Gym. He's a freestyle rapper, and then he just plays the beat, and then we all just freestyle rap. It's so fucking odd. Like I was like, oh my god, it's like the most nervous thing I did in a while. But then you just get into that flow state where you're just saying shit, and then just like things just come out. We have another thing, glass beat game here at the Stoa, where you just speak extemporaneously, and it really gets that flow state in speech.
That's like the opposite of writing songs. Just so collaborative and what's it called? Instinctual.
Mm-hmm.
Cool.
So yeah, let's close out here. So Fen, thank you so much for coming to this experiment. You're first kind of like proper artist that was the focus was around, perhaps awkwardly around the art.
No, it was nice to be your experiment. I enjoyed it.
Cool. And any closing thoughts that you'd like to leave us with, or people who are watching?
Just a cool thing that I've never said to anyone that I'd like to say. The person I wrote this song about, I was thinking about them this morning after not thinking about them for a long time. And I remembered that the the scariest detail about them is that they used to read me the Unabomber manifesto before I went to sleep, which is insane. So just if that is happening to you now and you're dating someone that does that, maybe leave. That's my piece of advice.
We actually had that guy.
You had Ted Kaczynski on this.
No, we had John Zerzan. He was a confidant of Ted, the Unabomber. He's pretty cool though. So yeah, if you're not totally scared, Fenne, would love to have you come back to the Stoa, jam with us further. Next event is tomorrow, the Elusive Eye, with our friend John Vervaeke and Greg Henriquez, Chris Mastropietro. Noam Chomsky is coming back with Natalie Wynn, ContraPoints, on Monday. They're going to be in conversation called The Future of the Left. It's going to be a huge session. You can check that out. And then Getting Right with Technology, Flourishing the Age of Anti-Social Media. This is about how to get the right relationship with tech, email, Twitter, all that shit. So you can check that out on the thestoa.ca. So that being said, Fenne, everyone, thanks so much for coming to Stoa today.
Thank you for having me.
Oh.